Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are entirely skipping those standard grammar rules and endless vocabulary lists you've probably seen 1,000 times before. Seriously, we're tossing them out. Instead, we're focusing laser tight on 7 practical strategies spread across 5 core phases that will actually move the needle on your spoken English. Oh, and speaking of practical tools, you might have noticed we've got subtitles up on the screen for this explainer. I highly encourage you to leave them on as we go. Reading along while you listen is just a fantastic way to reinforce what your brain is processing. So, are you ready to finally speak fluently, clearly, and with absolute confidence? Let's get right into it. Right off the bat, why do you know the grammar but still hesitate? Let's be honest, we all know this feeling, and it is incredibly frustrating, isn't it? I mean, you know the language on paper, you totally ace the written grammar tests, you read articles perfectly fine, but the very second it's time to actually speak it out loud to another human being, bam, you freeze up, you hesitate. The words literally just vanish into thin air. Well, we are going to fix that disconnect today by looking at some highly actionable techniques straight from expert language coaches.
Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. Number 1, the fluency mindset. 2, rewiring how you think. 3, powerful solo practice habits. 4, real-world conversations. And finally, number 5, mistakes are just data.
Section 1, the fluency mindset. This is all about acquiring the skill, and it's fundamentally about how we mentally approach the language before we even open our mouths. Here's the biggest trap most of us fall into: trying to learn English like it's a traditional school subject. We sit at a desk, cramming, trying to memorize our way to fluency. But fluency isn't a subject, it's a living, breathing skill. You don't learn a skill in a textbook, you acquire it through actual experience. Think about riding a bicycle. You didn't sit down and memorize the physics of balance before you got on the bike, right? No way. You got on, you wobbled around, you probably crashed into the neighbor's bushes a few times, and your body naturally figured it out. Speaking a language works the exact same way. You've got to acquire English through messy, imperfect practice so your mouth and brain can physically adjust to the sounds. So, how do we start acquiring? Well, it only takes 5 minutes. Literally, all you need is 5 minutes every single day to just talk to yourself in English. Seriously, just narrate your life out loud. Describe what you're doing while you're making your morning coffee. Talk about your plans for the day, or just describe the room you're sitting in. There is absolutely zero pressure here because no one is listening. It's this perfect, safe little sandbox to get your mouth used to wrapping around English words without any fear of judgment. Moving into phase 2, rewiring how you think. This is about those internal cognitive shifts and how we actually process words right before we speak them. If you're currently translating from your native language into English in your head before you speak, you probably already know it is incredibly slow and just completely exhausting. You're basically doing double the mental work. You have a thought, you translate it, you formulate the grammar, and then you finally speak it. By then, the conversation has completely moved on. Instead, you've got to train yourself to think directly in English. And don't worry, you don't have to start with complex philosophical thoughts. Start really small. Just look around you right now and mentally label the objects you see in English. Desk, lamp, window. As that gets easier, you can start extending those single words into full continuous thoughts. Now, what's really interesting about this is how native speakers actually operate. They use something called chunks. Native speakers almost never build sentences word by word from scratch. They use these prepackaged phrases that just roll off the tongue completely automatically. Phrases like, I was wondering if, that reminds me of, or to be honest with you. Learning these chunks as whole single units makes your speech infinitely faster and way more natural. Your brain doesn't have to painstakingly construct the grammar every single time. It just grabs that prepackaged chunk right out of your memory and runs with it. Section 3. Solo practice habits. Let's shift our focus to some highly actionable exercises you can do entirely on your own to really lock these skills in. This brings us to an absolutely crucial technique called shadowing. If you haven't heard of this, pay close attention because it's a real game changer. This is one of the most powerful techniques used by professional language coaches and UN interpreters to mimic native speech. You aren't just repeating words, you're stepping into the speaker's shoes. You're copying their exact rhythm, which syllables they emphasize, and how their voice naturally goes up and down. And by the way, this is exactly where leaving those subtitles on the screen acts as a massive cheat code. You can read exactly what they're saying while mirroring their precise delivery, totally syncing up your eyes and your ears.
Here is exactly how you do it, broken down into bite-sized actions. First, find a short 30-second clip. This could be a movie scene, a podcast, whatever you like. Second, play a sentence and then hit pause. Third, repeat it out loud. You want to do this for the same clip 5 or 6 times until those specific words feel completely natural and totally effortless in your mouth. You're building pure muscle memory here, plain and simple.
Okay, our next solo habit is one that makes pretty much everybody cringe at first, but you really have to trust the process here. Step 1. Record yourself speaking on a random topic for 1 to 2 minutes. Step 2. Force yourself to listen back to it. Step 3. Closely notice where you hesitate, which sounds are tricky for you, and where your grammar slips. I know. Listening to your own voice can be incredibly uncomfortable. I cringe at my own recordings too, but it's remarkably effective. Building awareness of your own slips is literally the required first step to correcting them. You simply can't fix what you don't hear. Let's move to phase 4 and see how this builds. Real-world conversations. We're stepping out of the solo practice room and heading into the wild. It's super important to understand a key difference here. Reading about English and actually speaking it use completely different mental muscles. You can read textbooks for hours on end, but you cannot rely solely on reading to build your real-time response skills. When you're reading, you have all the time in the world to analyze the sentence structure, but when you're speaking, you have milliseconds to react. You have to train the specific muscle that responds under the pressure of real time. And that means you need to find a true speaking partner, not just a study partner who sits quietly next to you in a library doing workbook exercises, but someone to actually talk to, a tutor, a friend, or someone in a language exchange app. You need an environment that absolutely forces you to give unedited, in-the-moment responses. You don't get the luxury of editing your sentence 5 times in your head before saying it out loud. You just have to speak, trust your instincts, and keep the flow going. And finally, Section 5. Mistakes are just data. This fundamentally reframes how we view failure in language acquisition. So the crucial point is this. Every single time you make a mistake, every wrong sentence you say out loud is not a failure. It's just data. Imagine you're a scientist conducting an experiment. A mistake is just a piece of feedback pointing exactly to what needs improvement next. It's a guidepost, not a stop sign. When you change your relationship with mistakes from fear to curiosity, you instantly strip away the anxiety that's holding you back from just opening your mouth. Ultimately, the whole shebang comes down to this core truth. Fluency is not the absence of mistakes. It's the ability to keep communicating despite them. Man, that is such a liberating thought. Even native speakers make grammar slips, stutter, or use the wrong word on a daily basis. What makes them fluent is that they just keep going. Keeping the conversation alive, keeping that human connection going despite the imperfections, that for sure is the true hallmark of a fluent speaker. I want to leave you with this final provocative question. What will your first 5 minutes of practice look like today? You have the roadmap now. You know how to acquire instead of just learn, how to shadow, how to think directly in English, and how to embrace your mistakes as data. But knowledge is only potential power until you actually put it into action. So don't wait for tomorrow. Take 5 minutes today. Talk to yourself, build that conversational muscle, and start taking your spoken English to the next level. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep speaking, and I'll catch you next time.